We're doing this much.
The ancestors have spoken.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Woo! Give it up. All right. Welcome to the inaugural celebration of Juneteenth as an official Washington State holiday. Can we get a round of applause for that? I love it. Hosted by Build, a business resource group for the members of the Black community and their allies in Washington State service. For more information about us and what we do, visit buildwa.org. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Sasha Nixon, the chair of Build.
And I am Tyrone Jordan Oliver, Bill's co-chair.
And we will be your MCs for this celebration today. All right, so before we get started, if you need to use the facilities, there's an ADA accessible porta-john here in the back over to the far left, also in the visitor center to our right, and in the Capitol building right behind us in the right back corner. Also under the tents we have refreshments available. Be sure to take your food ticket you found in your badge. This ensures that you're able to get food, so don't lose it. And lastly, you may see the DES event support surrounding and WSP surveying the area. This is to ensure safety. And now I will turn it over to Tyrone for recognition of distinguished guests.
Thank you, Sasha. How's everybody feeling? The weather's working with us. To start, we would like to thank our sponsors, Department of Retirement Services, Department of Revenue, Department of Labor and Industries, and Washington State Employees Credit Union. Additionally, we would like to recognize the contribution of those who made this event possible today. Thanks to those at the Department of Enterprise Services and the Office of Financial Management, and a very special thanks to our subcommittee, the Build's Juneteenth Subcommittee and History and Activities Subcommittee, for all of your hard work and dedication in bringing this celebration to life. Thank you to Sandra Daniels, Andre Simpson, Truth Allah for leading the effort, as well as committee participants Charlene Anderson, Rachel August, Sharon Bell Armstrong, Anita Bozer, Devin Brim, Yolanda Brooks, Yenny Castanedo, Freda Koga, Deanne Dykes, Faye, apologies for if I'm messing up your name. There's a lot of you, and we're on a time schedule. Faye Sears, Francesca Harrison, Annie Humphreys, Nicole Johnson, Altavia Jones, Candy Kruger, Thais Marbles, Catherine McPherson, Joelle Modeste, Elizabeth Nielsen, Masosi Nerienda, Tammy Petrie, Monisha Ramsey, Tony Rice, Lonnie Spikes, Jacob Stewart, and Erica Williams.
Great job. Up next, we would like to honor our special guests in attendance. Please stand, if you will, to be recognized when your name is called. Byron Ingalls, Interim CEO of Child Study and Treatment Center. Shauna Lawson, Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at UWT. Dr. Dexter Gordon, Evergreen State College. Dr. Marsha Tate Arunga, Evergreen State College. Jeff Dade, Director of Community Development. Kiara Daniels, Tacoma City Council, number 6. Thelma and Nat Jackson. Dr. Karen Johnson, Office of Equity. Thank you all for being here with us today. At this time, we would like to welcome Build member Lysandra Jones to the stage. Please stand and join us as she sings the Black National Anthem. Lyrics can be found on the back of your program.
Sing together, right? All right, let it ring.
true to our God, true to our name, dear
Another round of applause for Sandra. I have the honor to introduce our first guest speaker. DJ Tony Rice, everybody. Thank you, Tony. I have the honor to introduce our next speaker. Determined, focused, inspirational, and visionary are just a few words to best describe Melanie Denise Cunningham. She is a strategic thinker, truth teller, a person that always brings a fresh perspective and a positive attitude to any situation. Her career spans several industries, including federal, city, and state government, nonprofit, radio, television, higher education, and entrepreneurship. In 2018, the Greater Tacoma Peace Prize Committee selected Melanie as Tacoma's Peace Laureate for her lifetime achievement work in racial reconciliation. She was gifted a trip to Oslo, Norway, to attend the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony. She filmed and later produced a television documentary about her travels titled Peace Queen that recently won a Northwest Regional Emmy Award in the cultural documentary category. Hundreds of state employees know Peace Queen as the founder and conveyor of the People's Gathering, a Revolution of Consciousness conference, which they have attended as part of their DI professional development journey. And many others enjoy Melanie's truth-telling and wit on the Channel 253 podcast she produces with her sister titled, What Say You? Melanie holds a BA in General Studies from Washington State University, an MBA from Pacific Lutheran University, an MA in Organizational Development and Change from Fielding Graduate University, and is currently pursuing a PhD in Organizational Development and Change, also from Fielding Graduate University. She is a 49-year-old resident of Tacoma. Please join me in welcoming Peace Queen, Melanie Denise Cunningham.
All power to the people! All power to the people! All power to the people! Us. It's our day. Good morning still, everyone. In my 10 minutes, I just want to pass by with a little inspiration with a dose of truth. Today, we are celebrating Juneteenth. 2.5 years later, after the news happened, black folks in Texas got the word. 2.5 years later, that they was free. But in them 2.5 years, they was already free. I want to bring that forward to today. The question is, are we free? The question is, are we free? The question for you, say it to yourself, am I free? What is free? That's a state of mind. The times have changed, but the new tone is called systemic racism. That's what it is right now. That's what it is that we need to put in front of our mind. I'm happy that we have gathered on this historical first. So happy. It's the first time. We're happy about that. And comma. We are happy that it's the first. Thank you, Governor Ensley, for signing the proclamation, making this a holiday. We can get off work and come and celebrate and eat some food and do all the things, fellowship with one another, but let's be real. We're talking about a system that we were born into, many of us. Socialization. You heard them say that I'm working on my PhD, so let's talk a little bit about my research. We're talking about socialization and liberation. That's where we need to be. None of us, even our white friends that are here today, none of us asked to be born into this system. We were born into and socialized into through our institutions, our families, the laws, the policies, all of that socialization. We've been socialized in this racialized system. That's where we are today. And to do something different, you have to choose to liberate yourself. You have to choose. You have to get off and you get on to a liberation mindset. Carter G. Woodson, Miseducation of the Negro. If you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his or her or their actions. If you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about their actions. So today, are we in a liberatory mindset? Thank you, Juneteenth. Thank you for 2 years later telling the slaves that they were free. But my question to you today, are you liberated? And what is it that we are walking in? Liberation. The state of Washington is an example of liberation, the first in the nation to open an office of equity in the governor's office. And we give all honor to my queen, Dr. Karen Johnson in the house. Stand up, please. What Dr. Karen Johnson wants you to know is, are you prepared for the work in front of you? It's all of us that has to do it. Black folks, you know we can't depend on just us these days. It's our allies and our accomplices. White people, you know you've been to the People's Gathering. You know you don't get to claim that. We have to tell you that it's that. We got to let you know that you are an ally or an accomplice. So again, what are you doing? The work in front of us. Freedom is a state of mind. Illuminating, that is our theme for today. Illuminating consciousness. Illuminating the light. Consciousness, your mind. Let's get woke, people. Wake up. Teddy Pendergrass, wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more backwards thinking. Time to move ahead. So it is a collective work that we're in right now. Yes, we are celebrating Black freedom. But let's talk about the universal way. The universal way and the logic. When the least of us rise, we all rise. When the least of us rise, we all rise. So yes, this is Black People Freedom Day. We gonna walk around all day and say, this is a Black day. It's for us. It's about time. It's time for us to be proud of who we are. Look around and see who's not here. I know I'm speaking to the choir right now. Look around and see who's not here, so that when you go back to your agencies, that's your work. Bringing people in. What are we prepared to do? We are prepared to liberate ourselves and understand that systemic racism is real and that we are prepared to do the work. I would like to close. I got my little 10 minutes. But what I want to say is that you've got to mark an occasion with a ritual, if you will. You mark in African culture, we believe in rituals. So we're going to mark this one with a black oath. A black oath. A pledge of allegiance for black people. And if you all remember Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, let's go there. ISIS Papers. If you don't know, you better recognize. Write it down. ISIS Papers, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. This is our call to action. I'm going to read it first, and then I'm going to read it out loud, and I'm going to ask you all to say it after me. Okay, but I'm going to read it all right now. A black oath, a pledge of allegiance for black people. I pledge allegiance to my own black self-respect and to the respect of all other black and shades of black people on planet Earth, all of whom are victims of the system of racism, white supremacy, and I pledge to use all of my life energy, intelligence, and creativity in all areas of people activity to eliminate the global system of racism, white supremacy on planet Earth, and to replace it with justice so that there can be peace. So help me God. Is that something we can do together? Please stand. I pledge allegiance to my own black self-respect and to the respect of all other black and shades of black people on planet Earth, all of whom are victims of the system of racism, white supremacy, and I pledge to use all of my life energy, intelligence, creativity, in all areas of people activity, to eliminate the global system of racism on planet Earth, and to replace it with justice so that there can be peace. All power to the people. One more time. All power to the people. I'm dropping the mic.
Those two on the inside. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
And I have to pick it up. Round of applause for the powerful Peace Queen. You know, I've had the opportunity to speak to Peace Queen in organizing this event. And there was a lot that went into this event, so I couldn't get excited about it. But when I spoke with Peace Queen, I got goosebumps. So thank you, Peace Queen. Next, I'd like to introduce Build member Charlene Anderson and Build's past chair, Megan Matthews. You need 2 mics.
Oh, it's gonna be flying away. I'll fly away. Well, welcome everyone. I don't know how we're gonna follow Miss Peace Queen, but we're gonna try, right? That was amazing. Thank you so much for those words. and that truth. It wasn't a little bit of truth, it was a lot of truth. So we're so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be in fellowship in my community at work. That doesn't happen too often. So I am grateful for this time. My name is Megan Matthews. I am Build's first past chair. And I am so grateful for the work that everyone continues to do. This is the work of many, many hands, not the work of one individual. And so I'm grateful to be with all of you. And I'm also here with the amazing Charlene Anderson.
Hello everyone. My name is Charlene Anderson. I am a Build member as well as an employee with DSHS's Community Services Division. So glad to be here with you today.
And I just want to say that, so I'm also the Assistant Director for Shared Power Design with your Office of Equity, following the amazing, amazing leadership of Dr. Karen A. Johnson. I am so, so grateful for her leadership, and she gives her love. So for those of you who may not know, last year, Charlene and I recorded a video that talked about, what Juneteenth is, a history, just everything to do with Juneteenth. And we had some Kool-Aid and some red velvet cupcakes, and y'all didn't eat it, but it was good. So Charlene, what do you want to do for part 2?
So thank you, Megan. I think for part 2, what we want to do is discuss or how to bring the conversation into the present and how to make practical applications of some of the lessons learned from the past. But before we do that, let's just give a brief Juneteenth history, okay? So
sounds good to me.
All righty. So Juneteenth places Black people at the center of the conversation regarding freedom, what that really means, and the manifestation of freedom in this nation. So the beginning to the end of slavery was actually the Civil War. And there's many theories about why the Civil War even started. Some say it's because of the morality of slavery. I don't know if that's the case, but I do know after some research that the Civil War did start because of the economics of the slavery system, as well as the political control of that system. So there you have it, the two things that people are always fighting about, right? Mm-hmm. Money and power.
Money and power.
So here's how it all started. In November of 1860, Abraham Lincoln was running for president of the United States. He was a Republican running on an anti-slavery platform. Many of the southern states felt that if he won the presidency, it would be to the South's demise. So they vowed that if he won, they would leave the Union. Well, on November 6th of 1860, President Lincoln was elected president of the United States, and many of the southern states left the Union and formed what's called the Confederate States of America. During his inaugural address on March 4th of 1861, President Lincoln stated that his main goal was to preserve the Union. He had also previously stated that although he had run on an anti-slavery platform, he didn't oppose slavery in its entirety, but what he did oppose was the expansion of slavery into the Western territories. Well, those statements did not satisfy the Confederacy, so on April 12th of 1861, they attacked a federal stronghold, Fort Sumter, South Carolina, and the fighting began. During the Civil War, on September 22nd of 1862, President Lincoln signed the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. Now, he said that if the Confederate States did not surrender by January 1st of 1863, he was going to free their slaves. Now, don't get it twisted. President Lincoln wasn't going to free the slaves because he loved Black people and because he thought that was the best thing to do to end slavery. He was actually going to free the slaves because the southern states were actually using enslaved Black people in their war efforts. So him freeing the slaves was actually a war measure. So they did not surrender, of course, by January 1st of 1863. So President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed some, but not all, of the slaves. Now, the Civil War finally ended in April of 1861 when General Lee surrendered. Now, many people wonder, well, what's the significance of the state of Texas in emancipation and Juneteenth? Well, remember, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed on January 1st of 1863. But of course, it was not enforced. And Texas was one of the states that left the Union, and they continued to practice slavery in Texas. So what happened was many of the slave owners actually took their slaves to Texas to continue practicing slavery. And it wasn't until, communication wasn't vast. They didn't have Outlook, internet, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or none of that. So the information that slaves were freed was intentionally withheld from 250,000 slaves in Texas. And it wasn't until on June 19th of 1865 when Union General Gordon Granger, along with federal troops, arrived in Galveston, Texas, and issued General Order Number 3, ordering all slaves to be freed. And even when that happened, slavery was still legal. Slavery wasn't actually abolished until the 13th Amendment was ratified in December of 1865. Now check this out. In that amendment, there was a clause that said you could still be enslaved if you were convicted of a crime. So those are the type of things that make you go, especially when you consider present-day incarceration rates of blacks versus the incarceration rates of other races. So that's just a little bit of history of Juneteenth and why we celebrate. So the question to ponder now is, where do we go from here? So my dear friend Megan, what are your thoughts on where we go from here?
Well, thank you, Charlene. Thank you for that great history. And I just want to acknowledge that we are Washingtonians because the rain came and we ain't stopping, right? We're going to celebrate this. All right. Get the umbrellas and the ponchos and the hats and all that. So thank you, Charlene.
You're welcome.
So for me, some of my thoughts are, and some of the thoughts you're going to be hearing from your Office of Equity is, we need to put people first. We need to transition from a government that does things to people to a government that does things with people. People need to be housed, fed, safe. We need to be able to go to the grocery store without dying or being feared of dying. Our babies need to go to school, safely return home. So these are some priorities that our government has to do for us. We can't do anything else until we feel secure in our basic needs, our basic fundamental human needs. Humanity and love. We need to stop being viewed as and stop viewing other people as enemies, as others. We are all human beings. We want to practice what the Nguni Bantu word, Ubuntu, which means I am because you are. We are connected. If we want to go into the future, we have to come together. There is no existence by ourselves. So if we're really evolved in our more than the animals, we need to act like it, right?
That's right.
Access to information. So this is something that I'm learning more and more about. The centuries of segregation have left us without a lot of knowledge. And so even as we are moving into positions, we're doing it often alone. And so first, we need to give that access to information, and then we need to share the information within those of our community. We need to talk about things like finances, right? Those things aren't ashamed. Whatever you learn, put that together with whatever I learn, and together we're stronger together.
That's right, Megan. Each one, reach one. Yes.
Right? And the other thing is, if you like anime, then be about that anime, okay? All right? If you want to be the software engineer, then do that. Exercise your strengths to help all of us be better and get to where we need to be. If you want to surf, then go ahead and surf, I guess. But, go ahead. That's cool. So, I am the Assistant Director for Shared Power Design with the Office of Equity. The Office of Equity exists to promote access to equitable opportunities, power, and resources that people need to flourish and achieve their full potential. We have launched our pro-equity, anti-racism pair framework to achieve a pro-equity, anti-racism ecosystem in Washington State. This involves government partnering with impacted community to achieve outcomes. Nothing about us without us, right?
That's right. That's
right.
Yes.
So, freedom. We may have been freed from physical slavery, but as Charlene mentioned, as Miss Peace Queen mentioned, we're free. We're not all free because slavery has morphed over time. None of us are free until all of us are free.
That's right.
Free from racism, free from oppression, free from unnecessary barriers, free from being labeled and boxed into other people's expectations.
Right.
As Heather McGee so eloquently stated, racism and oppression costs everyone. Action. The time for action is now. Use your voice. Exercise your right to vote, especially in city, county, and also our state elections. It matters. They wouldn't be trying to stop it so much if it didn't matter. Join us as Washington State leads the way in transforming government in a way that achieves equity and justice for all, now and for generations to come. So again, as you've heard earlier, and as Dr. Jay always says, what are you prepared, P-E-A-R, paired to do in 2022? That's what I got to say right now, Charlene.
Yes. Thank you. So once again, Megan,
none of us are free until all of us are free.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for bearing with us through the rain. Up next, I will be introducing the Reverend Dr. Leslie David Bratz. He was born in Boston, Massachusetts on August 2nd, 1961. His childhood and formative years were spent in the Great Northwest in the city of Tacoma, Washington. He was baptized at the age of 6 in his home church, Bethlehem Baptist. In 1983, Reverend Braxton received his Bachelor's of Arts degree from the University of Puget Sound. He received a Master of Divinity degree from the Colgate Rochester Divinity School in 1987. In 1996, Reverend Braxton, the Doctor of Ministry, In 1996, the United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio, conferred upon Reverend Braxton the Doctor of Ministry in the study of Afrocentric Bible hermeneutics. Dr. Braxton regularly preaches revivals and special occasions and facilities workshops for churches throughout the nation. He is also a frequent speaker and presenter on college and seminary campuses. Dr. Braxton is an avid promoter of social justice, educational excellence, physical and emotional health, and well-being and community involvement. Dr. Braxton is a 2000 inductee to the prestigious Morehouse College Board of Preachers. He is a member of the Evangelicals for Middle East Unity and currently serves as the president of the Congress of Christian Education for the North Pacific Baptist Convention. Dr. Braxton is married to his hometown sweetheart, the former Sheila Donnell Stubbs. The two are blessed with one daughter, Carissa, a son, Samuel, and also the former guardians of a nephew, Ramon, all college graduates. Please welcome to the stage Reverend Dr. Braxton.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am covered and you are not, so I'm going to abbreviate my remarks, and I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that. I learned a long time ago growing up in Washington, if you plan an event before July 5th, always have a plan B. Some will say that this is a black holiday. It was until we federalized it and made it a state holiday. Because in a democracy, anything that becomes federal law or state law has to at some point have to do with all of us and not just some of us. So every holiday starts with the specific, but then it has to move to having well-being for the general. Because holidays, like statues, like portraits on walls, they're symbols. They symbolize what are the undergirding values of our broader society. So what is it about Juneteenth that speaks to the values of American society as a whole, so much so that we would federalize a holiday that we have been celebrating primarily amongst ourselves for 157 years? And I suggest that it is in the history. The biggest lie ever told about Juneteenth is that it was about the announcement to the slaves and the slaveholders in Texas that the black people were suddenly free. No. Emancipation Proclamation had been signed January 1st, 1863, 2.5 years they had been free. General Granger showed up with 2,000 federal troops in Galveston, Texas on June 19th, 1865, because though the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed and the 13th Amendment to the Constitution was in process, there was a long-established Southern tradition in their racial politics called nullification. Martin King spoke of it on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1863 when he talked about the governor of Alabama with his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. What is nullification? Nullification is when laws are set at the federal or state level. However, racists in local communities or sexist or homophobes decide to ignore federal statute. So even though rights are written on paper, rights are not realized unless they are enforced. So on June the 19th, 1865, 2,000 federal troops showed up in Texas to take recalcitrant Texas slave owners, and at gunpoint and bayonets told them, you will let these black people go free. The reality then and now is that laws that are not enforced are laws that might as well not exist at all. It has been the case with voting rights. It has been the case with women's reproductive rights. It has been the case with LGBTQ. Laws on paper that are not enforced are not realized by the people groups who are otherwise oppressed and denied those guarantees of citizenship. That we're supposed to have equal rights under the law, equal protections by the law, equal opportunity at the law. But we've learned again and again throughout our history, we're separate and not equal until our states, our cities, our counties, and our federal government enforce those laws, because privileged groups never voluntarily give up their privileges. They must be demanded by the oppressed, and they must be enforced by the forces of state and federal law. Those of you who study the philosophy of history know that some people naively think that history proceeds on a slow, steady, incremental, linear movement where progress is inevitable. Martin King said, history does not ride in on the wheels of inevitability. History rather moves in cycles where we move forward, but then the forces that we have ripped our freedom out of the hands of, evil does not retire, it regroups. And so every forward advance in racial relations, in women's rights, in the rights of LGBTQ, in the rights of foreign-born people, in the rights of non-English speaking people, we move forward, but then the forces, the groups that shared privilege under an old order, they don't retire, they regroup and try to regain past privileges. And so every generation, we have to refight old battles. We have to re-prosecute old wars. And here we are again in the third decade of the 21st century, fighting for the voting rights that we thought was settled law. Women fighting for reproductive rights we thought was settled law. And every generation must step up to the fight, because as we move forward, there's always headwinds that want to push us back. Former Mississippi Senator Trent Lott, when he was asked When was America at its greatest? His answer, 1955. 1955. The same year that Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy from Chicago, visiting family in Mississippi, didn't know the mores of the South, didn't know that when a black man walks down the street and a white woman's walking the other direction, you have to step off the curve and turn your eye gaze down and away so that you don't contaminate her pure whiteness. And he was drugged from the house of relatives and taken and mutilated till his body washed up along some lonely riverbank. And in the minds of Trent Lott, that America was great. But in the minds of Langston Hughes, that America ain't never been America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. And what America will be, what it wrote on its paper, that all men, and it should have said all people are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what Lincoln said over the endless crosses on the battlefield, the smoldering battlefield of Gettysburg, when he said this nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, and can this nation or any other nation so conceived long endure upon the earth? Well, that's a question now. January 6th suggests that that's a question now. And so Juneteenth is not Black People Day. Juneteenth is a day in American life and history where laws that were written on paper meant nothing if the federal government wasn't going to enforce them on the people who would otherwise nullify them. For every people group that have been oppressed in our history, our ability to live with liberty and justice for all depends on whether or not the powers that be in the political winds will enforce the rights that others would otherwise take from us. And so the fight goes on. Things that we thought were settled law, they're not so settled. And so this generation must march like past generations, an army of people of conscience, sometimes conscienceless power going up against powerless conscience. But we fight. We fight because, in the words of Charles A. Tinley, we know that harder yet may be the fight, and right may often yield to might. Wickedness a while may reign, Satan's cause may seem to gain, but there is a God that rules above with a powerful hand and a heart of love. And if we're right, God will fight her battles, and we shall be free. Someday, in the words of Claude Mckay, the great poet who talked about what some penned as the most dangerous time in American society to be black, and that was after the establishment of Plessy versus the Plessy Supreme Court decision that established separate and equal in American society, which was separate and very unequal. From that to the start of the modern civil rights movement, where it was common to see black bodies dangling from trees as strange fruit, or pulled from the brush along some wayside road. And he challenged black people. He said, yes. He said, if we must die, let us not die like hogs hunted and pinned in some inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs that make their mock of our cursed lot. If we must die, then let us nobly die, so that our precious blood will not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. He said, O kinsmen, let us rise to meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave. And for the 1,000 blows, deal one death blow. Like men, we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back. And today we fight back, not just black folks. White folks of conscience, there have always been some. Our brown brothers and sisters who've drugged themselves across the Rio Grande only to have their children snatched from them and put in cages. Our LGBT brothers and sisters who some want to shove back into a closet. People who don't speak English as a mother tongue but have a voice that needs to be heard. We have to fight. To continue to fight. And in the words of Ted Kennedy, who used to be the lion of the Senate, a rich white man who had a heart and an empathy for people who were not born with his kind of privilege. But to the day cancer took him, used to end every public address by saying, for those whose cares have been our concern, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die. Sunshine or rain, the dream can't die. You can kill dreamers, but you cannot kill the dream. This is no black holiday. This is a holiday, an American holiday, where we understand that what we write on paper, we have to enforce. Because if not enforced, then the people can't realize it. And I commend the state of Washington, a state committed to the enforcement of the rights of black and brown and gay and straight and old and young and able and disabled and religious and unreligious, to enforce the rights of all people, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless you. God keep you.
Wow. Wasn't that amazing? Are y'all feeling inspired? I'm feeling inspired. Reverend Doctor, you smooth now. Smooth. I like it. All right. Let me prep y'all for a little bit more inspiration. Christian Page is an Emmy-nominated spoken word poet, a professional speaker and educator who speaks at schools, conferences, and events across the United States. Page has spoken to hundreds of thousands of people and loves to work with young people who are committed to doing good in the world. Page is the first-generation college graduate, an Act 6 scholar, is passionate about community, anti-racism, equity, and empowerment. He has spent his entire career in and around education, advocating for historically marginalized populations and working to create equitable environments where young people can thrive. He was born and raised in Tacoma, where he currently lives and teaches. He believes that our voice is the most powerful tool and encourages others to use their voice to advocate, interrupt, empower, and teach. Christian often uses one sentence to summarize himself. He says, "I am just somebody who wants the community to work for everybody." Let's welcome Christian Page to the stage for a spoken word presentation.
All right, peace and love. Good afternoon, everybody. Ooh, I didn't think some rain was going to stop us. I said good afternoon, everybody. Awesome, awesome. Peace and love. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to be here with you all today. I'm excited to have the opportunity to be here with you all today. Grateful for everybody who worked to put this event together. I'm grateful for all of my elders and ancestors that have stood before me and allowed my 2 feet to be in this place. I'm grateful for everybody who's here under the sound of my voice today, right, to show that we're in solidarity, that this is important to us. I'm going to hold this microphone. But can I tell y'all what we not going to do today? Ooh, y'all sleep. Can I tell y'all what we not going to do today? Is that we're not going to let this be a performative celebration. We're not going to let this be the equivalent of a black box on Instagram post George Floyd. That we won't let this be the equivalent of a Black Lives Matter t-shirt or a Black Lives Matter sign in somebody's front yard where there are no black people. Right? I want this to be a day where it becomes something that means something to us. Right? I've seen a lot of people who have empty anti-racist commitments. Can I talk spicy to y'all or do I got to go home? All right, I just want to make sure. A lot of empty anti-racist commitments, and what I've been offering to folks is that your anti has to mean something. I was introduced to a wonderful woman. I don't know if anybody is from the city of White Center, that is not so white and not so center. Y'all familiar with White Center? Right? One of my sisters, 2 of my sisters who are actually there, 2 individuals by the name of Pat and Lena Thompson. If y'all know Pat and Lena Thompson, make sure you give them their flowers today. But as I was graduating from college, they asked me a really important question. Right? They asked me the question, what do you look like in the eyes of your enemy? And if your enemy is not afraid, are you actually doing your job? And so what I want to offer to you all is that if we have some kind of anti-oppressive, anti-racist commitment, but racism is not afraid of us when we show up back to work on Tuesday, I don't know that this celebration was worthwhile. So what I offer to us is that we don't find ourselves in a place of performative anti-racism or performative allyship, right? But that we actually find ourselves waking up to do this work day in and day out.
Say that.
Can y'all pinky promise me that you'll do it?
Say that.
All right, I see a lot of pinkies in the air. This poem was written in response to the question that Pat and Lena asked us as we were graduating, and the poem is called "The Eyes of Your Enemy." And the poem would read like this. This is, y'all all right? Okay, should I step over here? I hear this ringing, and I don't know if it's getting to y'all.
Come back to soon.
All right, we just gonna go. That's all right with y'all? So here's how the poem would read. The poem would say, "A wise woman once asked me, 'What do you look like in the eyes of your enemy?' My grandmother used to read me that we don't battle against flesh and blood, but against principalities in high places. A wise woman once said that they will never forget how you made them feel. And since then, I've wondered what oppression looks like when it sees me. I wonder if it trembles when I make connections with the like-minded. I wonder what happens to poverty's point of view when there's a wealth of knowledge in the young minds that I teach. What access tastes like in the mouth of the exclusive. This is not a conversation about a holiday. It's better. It's fundamentally changing how we mentally cultivate community, beautifully choosing to scoff in the face of division while building bridges for unity. See, you and me, we have to decide to torment the things that torment our children. To write an eviction notice for homelessness, to tell it that you can't stay here anymore, to tell poverty it's time to pay what you owe our families, to dethrone white supremacy, to hang it upside down by its bootstraps and shake the change out of its pockets until there's change in the pockets of the communities that it has robbed of its resources. What do you look like in the eyes of your enemy? We should look like an interruption, like an unsolvable equation of equity, like a persistent peoples pressing powerfully into each other until oppression can't tell us apart. We should look like a fortress surrounding the well-being of our babies. Our babies should feel like rock stars, taking risks beyond the deficits prescribed to them, stage diving into the hands of a community waiting to watch them crowd surf into their wildest dreams. We should sound like a megaphone, amplifying the voices that have been forced into a whisper, giving power to the people who stand most affected. We should understand the principles, the broken ideologies and poorly written policies that chronically create disproportionality with no form of apologies, and my apologies if this is starting to feel like more than what you signed up for. But there's a door over there if you're starting to feel scared because there's too much at stake for us to fake like we are fighting against more than just misfortune. We have work to do, but it's up to you. The only gaps that truly exist are the ones that we allow to persist when we wish instead of move, dream instead of create. Tomorrow is too late. Our babies cannot wait another year to be loved and supported from cradle to career. And I hope that our enemy sees us and knows that it has no choice but to concede. I hope it sees a collective that will stop at nothing until we speak of poverty, of gaps, of racism, not as issues that we face, but as parables of what has been solved by our collective impact. A wise woman once asked me, "What do you look like in the eyes of your enemy?" And I hope that our answer is ready. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Well, I told y'all what we're not going to do. Can I tell you something that we can do? Is that all right? Okay. I'll just make sure y'all are still with me. Some people don't like me after I performed that poem. Here's what I'll offer to you all is I don't want to stand in a place of being hypocritical. My least favorite leaders on the planet are people who ask people to do things that they wouldn't be willing to do themselves, that haven't already lived the expectations of what they're asking for other people. And what I'm asking, or what I'm offering to you all today, is that this work is possible because it's been done before. And we haven't seen it, right, in a widespread section of the way that we'd like to, but I would tell you that I come from the city of Tacoma. Are there any, I see some Tacoma folks in this building, right? What I will offer you is when I was walking into high school, all 7 of the comprehensive high schools in our district had been deemed dropout factories. They had said that there was a likelihood that less than 60% of us would graduate from high school, and if you are a black or a brown body, your percentage was more like 48%. Which means I could stand in a room of my peers and only half of us were expected to graduate from high school. What I would offer you is that there were individuals who were activists, who were creators, who were people who cared about our community, who were allies, who were accomplices, who were co-conspirators, and not the Instagram kind, but the people who put their boots on. Right? What I'm offering you is that in the span of 10 years, all 7 of our comprehensive high schools went from being, right, dropout factories to having a 91% graduation rate, becoming a model for education. Right? Y'all can clap that up. And listen to this. And the gap between black students and their counterparts closed. So what I'm offering to you all is that this work is possible. That somebody has leaned into, that there were elders who came before me who made this work happen, and I get to reap the benefits of, and it is my job to carry the baton and pass it on when it is my time. And what I would offer you is that the metaphor that I think is important for us to understand is this idea of a tree. And some folks over here found out how important trees were today. But what I'm offering you, right, is that when a tree grows, right, it starts to produce fruit. And inside that fruit, there are more seeds. Right, and if we take care of those seeds and plant them and water them, right, then it produces another, I'm glad y'all was paying attention, it produces another tree, right, and that cycle gets to continue. And what I'm offering is that the work that has been done in Tacoma is by hands who are green thumbs, right, and individuals that can continue to do this work are the people who are present today. So this place I want to leave you on is actually the story of, I call it our Tacoma come up, but it's a poem called Trees. Can I perform this last piece for you all? All right. The poem would read, they called us low income. They called us at risk. Always speaking from a deficit, didn't realize that my learned experience was prerequisite to be a leader in this community. How could you ever really know unity if you've never seen the broken? They tried to slam the door shut, but my elders held it open. See, they forgot to call us scholars. Forgot to call us knowledge dip, sociologists, unapologists, polished with dreams of being our brother's keeper long before it was common in politics. See, we were the seeds that nobody expected to be trees, but we tend to supersede expectations. Defy statistics. Never standing complicit, leaders aren't just in our titles, it's synonymous with our existence. We were the roses that grew from the concrete. Became the garden that grew from your ghetto. Became the forest that grew from the forgotten, proceeded without caution, never waited to blossom. See, this is the part of the story where somebody finally saw them. It started grassroots. Humble beginnings in its early stage where teachers who cared worked extended days without extended pay just to see the students walk across that prestigious stage and not holding regular diplomas. No, see, these were degrees for change. They gave us the tools, watered our seeds, never looked surprised at what their investment would bring. A network full of leaders from the hill to the CD, educated and ready to meet the city's needs. We changed campuses, brought perspectives to private schools, navigated the unspoken rules of colleges that weren't built for us. With stories too unique for the common application, collected determination in the cadre and formation, we made an impact that could only be measured in scientific notation. We became teachers, preachers, scientists, activists, lawyers, employers, nonprofit founders, and PhDs. But ultimately, when watered, we became trees. A wise person plants seeds so the descendants with no shade. The investment that was made receives returns every day. What started as little ripples has now become waves, and generational trajectories have been completely changed. Now this is community development. And it doesn't start with tall buildings, renovations, or detaining our youth. It starts with homegrown leaders unafraid to speak their truth, able to bear fruit because they're connected with deep roots to a city that raised them and respects what they do. When a community stands together, then mountains become movable. Lights in the collective are too bright to be dim. See, we didn't love our cities because they were beautiful. Our cities are beautiful because we chose to love them. So don't call us anything that starts with a deficit. Call us scholars. Call us leaders. Call us change. Call us trees. and discover what happens when you decide to water a seed. Call us the future and watch us as we continue to bear fruit. And what they told you was the desert. Peace and love, family.
DJ. I only got to turn it on when I get down. All right. Check. All right, now flip that switch on. Switch all the way up. DJ Tony Rice, y'all. Woo! You used to run track. I could just tell how you hopped up on the stage. Where'd you come from? Oh, man. Christian Page. Powerful. We almost didn't have him here. But I saw a YouTube video and I had to speak to the chair and be like, Sasha, I need to change the program one more time. And I changed it 3 times after that. But we needed to have this brother here because his message is something. Thank you. I have the honor now to introduce someone that has championed why we are here today in making Juneteenth a holiday for the state of Washington. Melanie Morgan is a former school board director from Franklin Pierce Schools, a U.S. Army veteran, and an active community advocate. While serving on the school board, she challenged her colleagues, district leaders, and community members to consider the impact of policies on not just students, but on families and the broader community. The 20th Legislative District, South Tacoma, East Lakewood, Springboard, Parkland, Spanaway, and West Frederickson, is a vibrant and diverse district. And as such, Melanie uses an equality, diversity, and inclusion lens when addressing policies and practices and how they may impact the entire community. In Washington State House of Representatives, Melanie is a strong voice for the underrepresented communities and a staunch advocate for equality in state's politics. Having personally experienced homelessness, she understands firsthand the barriers people face in order to meet one's basic needs. She knows that people who struggle and most tend to have the least access to the legislative process. This motivates her to run for state legislature. She is proud to bring her personal and professional experience to represent the advocates for the 29th. Melanie has been a housing advocate since 1997, serving as a mortgage banker, a safe housing coordinator, and as a commissioner on the board of Pierce County Housing Authority. Additionally, she has served on the board of community health care. She is also a domestic violence and sexual assault advocate, A graduate of St. Martin's University, Melanie lives in Parkland. Please join me in welcoming Representative Melanie Morgan.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So you're at my office today. Behind me, the state capitol, where we've passed great legislation for the state of Washington. So yes, my name is Melanie Morgan, and I represent the 29th Legislative District in South Tacoma. I want to thank Build for inviting me here today to kick off the most important holiday, the Juneteenth celebration. It is the longest running African American holiday, the second Independence Day, if you will, a hope for a better tomorrow. Today's celebrations of the end of chattel slavery have three goals: to celebrate, to educate, and to agitate by shaking things up. We celebrate by remembering that Africans were captured and shipped to a foreign land and herded like cattle in public auctions, stripped naked, poked, and prodded for their sturdiness and strength, for labor in the fields and the plantation houses, or any work ordered by their white masters. We celebrate their resiliency. For over 400 years, several generations of Africans were beaten, bred, experimented upon, sexually abused, overworked, denigrated, and hung. Understanding that no matter the atrocities committed against them, they survived. We celebrate, yes, yes, yes. We celebrate by remembering their achievements in overcoming. We celebrate them today. We give thanks for the strength provided them. As of on June 19th, 1865, African slaves were released off of plantations with no direction of where to go, no resources to survive in a white society, not a red cent in their pockets. We celebrate that 150 years of black codes, race riots, exclusionary and Jim Crow laws, the crack invasion, over-incarceration, and murder did not and will not stop the rise of black African Americans. We celebrate that in the state of Washington, we said yes to Juneteenth being a state-paid holiday a month prior to becoming a federal holiday. A couple of weeks ago, I attended a symposium on reparations for African Americans, put on by the Washington State Minority and Justice Commission. There were many takeaways that day, but two of them ring true today. Dr. Jefferson Jones, professor of Fort Wayne State University Law School, says that reparations are not handouts, not entitlements, not benefits or help, but a debt owed. Dr. Ayatoro, professor at William H. Bowen School of Law, says that reparations honors the past by restoring the present. Therefore, we educate that reparations are a debt owed to black African Americans. We educate that there have been 8 Civil Rights Acts passed in this country, yet my brothers and sisters are still being innocently killed in the streets and in their beds. We educate the importance of our civic duty, vote. We educate that this day is not just a holiday, but that it has a larger meaning and impact, as this is an acknowledgement that chattel slavery did happen in the United States of America, and that the fact reaches far across our borders, like Africa and the Caribbean and other African diaspora. We educate our children and ourselves about the truths of slavery, systemic racism, and the impacts it has upon Black African Americans. We educate and acknowledge that Jim Crow attitudes are still present in the state of Washington. We educate that there has been an injury to Black African Americans caused by the multi-generational trauma together with continued oppression. This, coupled with the absence of an opportunity to heal or access to the benefits available in society, which results in post-traumatic slave syndrome, a term coined by Dr. Joy DeGruy in Oregon. Your pen is your voice. Your vote matters. Local, city, county, and state races do not have an electoral college. Every vote counts. We educate by spreading the word that formerly incarcerated individuals are now able to register to vote. We educate. We educate because knowledge is power. And finally, we shake up status quo by continuing to dismantle systemic racism. Once again, the state of Washington is leading the way in being an anti-racist state. And that we thank our governor for that proclamation. Thank you, Governor. We are the only state in the nation with the Office of Equity. I was proud to take that vote. We shake things up by continuing to hold one another accountable. Each of us doing our own interpersonal healing work. We shake things up by ensuring that the Voting Rights Act is upheld. We shake things up when we show up to fight the good fight. We shake things up when we vote. Ida B. Wells says, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. This celebration today is not a one and done, as those who before me stood on this stage and have said. But this is a continuation of the good fight that many before us have fought. The struggle continues. But today, we fellowship by celebrating, educating, and shaking things up with all of our neighbors and allies. Let us march on till victory is won. Because in the end, we win! We win! My name is Melanie Morgan, the leader we deserve. Happy Juneteenth. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, Representative Morgan. And now we will have our executive sponsor, Marcus Glasper, come to the stage to introduce the governor.
Oh, I almost fell there. Thank you, Sasha. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling good right about now. I don't know if I want this day to end, and the sun is back out shining. So we have a special guest with us today. Governor Ensley is a fifth-generation Washingtonian who has lived and worked in urban and rural communities on both sides of this great state. He grew up in the Seattle area and graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in economics before earning his law degree at Willamette University. Truly a public servant, Governor Ensley first became involved in public service in 1985 when he and his lovely wife Trudy, our First Lady, helped lead the effort to build a new public high school in Selah, Washington. He went on to represent the 14th Legislative District in the State House of Representatives and was elected to Congress in 1992. The Ensleys later moved back to Kitsap County, where Governor Ensley was again elected to Congress in 1998, serving for more than 14 years until 2012, when he was elected our governor of the state of Washington. Governor Ensley is now in his third term and currently the longest-serving governor in the United States. So we fondly know him as an advocate for climate change in protecting the future for our children and grandchildren. But he really is an advocate for all things Washington. I'm especially proud that he is an advocate for diversity, an advocate for inclusion, and an advocate for equity, championing our state being on the leading edge of advancing this work. And we know that there is work to do. He is a change maker, being an advocate for all Washingtonians to be able to live, work, and thrive. So it is especially meaningful that he is here with us today to commemorate one of the most historic events in our nation's history, ending the major root cause of the inequities that are still experienced today. So I'm honored to be able to work alongside this great change maker. Please stand and join me in welcoming someone who really needs no introduction, the 23rd governor of the state of Washington, Governor Jay Hendry.
You have me till we're standing. Thank you, Marcus. Thanks for your great leadership. What a great day in the state of Washington, where we can celebrate the sunshine of justice and anti-racism by making June 19th a treasured day in the history of the state of Washington. What a great day. You know, I was thinking about what this day commemorates. You know the history. The January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln brought into effect the Emancipation Proclamation. But it was not effectuated because the people who intended to be protected, the slaves in the black community of the South in Texas, essentially did not hear about it for 2 years. Until June 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger brought that news with the United States Army to make sure that the Emancipation Proclamation was going to be effectuated across the South. Why did it take 2 years for the Emancipation Proclamation to be effectuated in the United States? That is a good question. But here's another question. Why are we still fighting the forces of hatred and division after 150 years in the United States? That's the question we have to ask ourselves now. Because the sad fact of what happened in Galveston, the scourge of division and hatred, unfortunately, still exists in our country and to our state. We know it existed in Buffalo a few weeks ago, that poisoned the hearts that ended up in fatalities. We know that it poisoned activities in Charlottesville, Virginia, years ago, where unfortunately we had a president to say, well, there were both good people on both sides of that. He was wrong about that, I'll tell you that. Those pernicious poison of division still exist. And we have to be as dedicated to the ideas of equity and freedom and liberty, both socially and economically, just as much as Abraham Lincoln was in 1865. I believe that our task is just as important and frankly just as difficult. I'll tell you why. You know, Martin Luther King said, and we still honor him for so many things he said, but I think probably most of us think our favorite is that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. We believe that, but there is a corollary to this. It does not bend to justice unless we bend it, unless we put our shoulders to the wheel, unless we stand up when we see inequity in our society. And this is just one of the things we're doing to try to bend that arc of the moral universe. And it's important to get people to think about this issue. This holiday is not just a time to enjoy our families. It's a day to think about the things we need to do to continue to bend the arc of the moral universe. Now, I can tell you Washington State's got a long ways till we reach the promised land of true equity. But I can tell you, because we have leaders like Melanie Morgan and Marcus and others, and the Build community getting this holiday, we've done some good work in the state of Washington. But we need more work to do. As you know, we just did our diversity, equity, and inclusion training for our state employees the other day. We are committed to having greater contracting opportunities. We now have an official holiday. We are moving forward to make sure that Washington State leads on equity like it leads in everything else. And we still have a long ways to go. The economic inequity that people are suffering in the black community, the continuation on occasion of unnecessary incarceration, the inability to get equity to open marijuana businesses or cannabis businesses, all of these things need improvement in the state of Washington, and I'm dedicated to see we continue those improvements. So we're going to continue this effort, and I want to thank you to enjoy your families and enjoy the brighter future of the state of Washington on June 19th. We'll see you over at the Flag Pavilion, where we're going to raise a great flag for this great holiday. Congratulations, everybody. Okay, we're going to go over right away.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, y'all. This is Black Thought, your boss DJ from around the way, and you're listening to...
Check. DJ Tony Rice, y'all.
Too soon, Tony. Too soon.
Woo! He wants to start the party.
Woo, woo, woo. All right, y'all. We have literally weathered a storm sitting here. I want y'all to look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, we made it. All right. So, before we formally close this part of our celebration, we would like to take a moment to announce Bill's new executive leadership team for the 2022-2023 term. Bill's next chair will be our very own Tyrone Jordan Oliver. Bill's co-chair, who's not present today due to prior obligations, Nolan Washington. Trooper Nolan Washington. And Bill's executive assistant for a second term because she is so awesome, Jenny Castanetto. Please join me in congratulating them. I know they will do an amazing job serving Build and moving the needle toward our goals. With that, I hope you all enjoyed today's program. Thank you to our phenomenal guest speakers, Peace Queen, the Reverend Dr. Christian Page. Thank you to Governor Ensley and Representative Morgan for celebrating with us today. And thank you all for joining us.
You know, I heard the suggestion that, in Washington, you need to always plan for a plan B with the rain. But I like to say it's going to be what it's going to be. And that reign that we had, I believe, in my mind, what I'm going to make it mean, was the ancestors of those that came before us crying out of joy for this event. Thank you to OFM, DES, Washington State Patrol, Commission of African American Affairs for the behind-the-scenes support and help with the logistics coordinating. Thank you to our vendors, Tamu Foods, Wally's Soul Food Experience, and thank you to all of you being here and sharing with us in this important celebration.
Okay. And now for our long-awaited highlight of the celebration, please join us at the flagpole for the Juneteenth flag-raising ceremony.
We of the Black Watch now arrest the demonic mind state of mortals for the following.
Here in the back. Straight back.
Science.
And there is a ton of food.
Mathematics, astrology, philosophy.
If you haven't already received food,
reality, speech techniques, not to mention the tolerance of ignorance, raping of a people, subjecting